Hi, everybody. This is Joel Simmons for another EarthWorks Turf Talk. As you probably know by now, I'm a little obsessed with the conversation of organic matter in golf greens and in sports fields. And we've been talking to a lot of folks recently about this issue. And one of the things that came out of that was a podcast with our dear friend John Reilly. And I'm going to encourage you to take a listen to this week's podcast. And at the end of the Turf Talk, I'm going to run a little clip from that podcast where John talks about diluting the organic matter with sand through an injection system. And what he found was as he added organic amendments, things like Renovate Plus and Myco Replenish, he was actually able to reduce the level of organic matter, but increase the infiltration. So what he did was basically changed the organic profile from what I would call not a good organic profile to a good organic profile. And again, the key thing there really is that it's lowering the OM levels, but increasing the infiltration rates of water. So you can see there is a physical change there. But let me talk about a couple other things. We have coming up in the next week or so, Zach Ramey, who is going to talk about his property. And I met Zach at a EarthWorks Academy, and he showed me these pictures here. And this is what I call the Thatchate. So this is what he had when he inherited the property about 3 years ago, maybe 4. And after years of working his soil and getting air in there and getting organic amendments in there, like EarthWorks, he was able to change that thatch profile into a humus profile, increasing, again, his porosity levels, which is really quite fascinating. Take a look at this one. This is from a dear friend of mine who shall remain nameless. But he came into this property, as you can see here, in 2003, and he, too, was able to change that thatch cake profile into something that's much more workable. He digested the ligneous material, and yes, he used organic amendments to break down organics, because what happens there is that you have the ability to start the digestion process by really speeding up the activity of microbiology. So when you feed available forms of carbon, you get a chance to get that microbiology really working hard, and they'll start breaking down the thatch. And that's what we've been seeing for 37 years here at EarthWorks, all over the country in all sorts of soil conditions. But take a listen to this little conversation I had with John Reilly. I think you'll find it fascinating. Please, I encourage you to listen to this week's EarthWorks podcast, where John talks about getting sand injected into the soil and what it has done for the overall plant and soil health of his properties. Thank you so much.
Yeah, measuring organic matter, measuring sands, sieve sizes, perk rates, doing something through the growing season for a Florida person while you're not getting a lot of golf. This is when we do our culture. And then, setting us up to be successful for our golf season. And what does that look like in real life? And what does that look like on paper? And so the last couple of years, I've done some other testing before cultural practices, then after. And then this year I did one with Myco Woods for 246. I'm also involved in a business where I inject sand, wet sand and amendments. And I'm privy to some other people's information. And we're looking at the fact that there's a level of organic matter that's beneficial, or organic material, in your first 4 centimeters, maybe your first 2 inches. And that was something I never would have thought of. I thought the more sand I could put in, the more I could dilute my OM, the better health I would have. And the numbers do not support that. And that's why when I saw you talking, I said, Joe, please let me on this.
Let's talk about this.
So I think that it's in its early stages. I think there's people out there that know this a lot better than I do, but I think that the movement is again to encourage biology and to sort of use it in that plant health equals plant performance matrix, as opposed to let's just bury these babies in sand, let's rip them up and
And,
that kind of.
John, I think what you're seeing in a lot of the work that you're doing, I give you a ton of credit. I mean, you are one of the most analytical superintendents that I know, and I mean that with great compliment. And you really think through things, and obviously have the thought ability to make it work. And the stuff you're doing with the WetJect is really pretty intense. But I think what you're discovering is sometimes we have to qualify: is it good organic matter or is it bad?